he introduced me to swimming at a very young age. I'm not sure quite as young as we're talking about, but very early. And I grew up around a lifeguard family. As she said, my dad was a lifeguard since 1941, before the war, had his degree from USC. When he came back after years in the Navy from the war, he decided to become a full-time lifeguard at a time where people with college degrees would have never considered doing anything like that. They had so many other options that were so much better at that point in time, because it didn't pay very well and you could barely support your family doing it. And through his efforts, it changed and it became much more professional, and the LA County lifeguards were the first ones to do CPR long before there was no paramedics. With the house calls, if you had a heart attack from your mom and you lived in Redondo, Hermosa, Manhattan, it was the lifeguards that came to your house to do CPR on your mother, or that kind of thing. And so they were very much on the cutting edge of things, and they helped change the lifeguard profession into something that was truly a profession to be proud of. I grew up around the beach, going to the beach almost every day of my life. Every day during the summer, after school. I was in the first junior lifeguard program we ever had. I was age 12, I believe. So my experience, I've always been around it, and I take it for granted sometimes, but this is the world's best natural resource that we could ever have. It's the main reason so many of us stay in California. It's because of the weather and the beaches. And so when I became a permanent or a part-time lifeguard at age 18, I knew I wanted to be a lifeguard my whole life, but it became even a much better career than I could have ever hoped for. The LA County lifeguards are a wonderful group of people. They do a wonderful job of supporting the beaches in every way possible, from first aids to rescues. When you're a lifeguard, you'll have people say, well, gee, have you ever had to make a rescue? Well, the LA County lifeguards average about 15,000 rescues a year, and it's because of the riptides out there that cause a safety issue. In this country, I believe drowning is the second highest cause of death in the country, behind, I think, traffic accidents, if I'm not mistaken. And that's because there's so many people, unlike me, who aren't exposed to it in an early age to take advantage of this thing in a safe manner. And with the swim programs like you're talking about, and these things, and the ocean fever efforts, it's a tremendous way to change people's lives and allow them to take advantage of such a wonderful resource. When I finished my career as a lifeguard chief in charge of the South Bay beaches, I tried to decide, I wanted to stay involved, but I also had been in charge of these beaches for so long, I didn't want to be in the way of my successor. And so I decided that I would stay involved by staying with the International Surf Festival. It's an event that my dad started in 1963, and this year will be the 59th annual International Surf Festival, and it used to be every year consecutive until COVID hit, and we had it this last year, but the year before we couldn't do it because of COVID, and they wouldn't give us permits to do it, and we were happy to know that we were able to come back. I know that we had a bunch of our swimmers that swam it anyway, and there was somebody that looked a lot like me that actually went down and started a small group just to keep our traditions. I don't know who he was, but anyway, this International Surf Festival is a great event. If you haven't participated in it, there's an event for everybody in there, and they have youth swims, youth events. They have surf contests. They have paddle events. They have lifeguard events at night on Friday and Saturday night. They have volleyball competition. I'm sure I'm leaving out some good running events, yeah, for sure. And so, and it's, other than some relatively inexpensive entry fees, it's pretty much free just to cover our costs, and the lifeguard events are all free. If you've never seen that, lifeguards racing in the surf at night, wonderful thing to participate in. Everything's free, no admission. And so the Surf Festival is something that after I retired, I decided I wanted to stay involved with. And so I was the president of the Surf Festival for 10 years after having been involved with it in other functions before that. We had a lady named Sheila Douglas who ran the peer-to-peer swim while I was still working, and when I was president, and then she decided that after doing it for about 25 years that she would hand off the baton, and I was about ready to step down as president at the time she handed me the baton, and so I just changed hats and kept going. And the peer-to-peer swim is an event that when my dad started it in 1963, the very first course they ever had started at the Redondo Breakwater, and it went from the Redondo Breakwater to the Manhattan Pier. So it was actually a longer swim than it is now. So you think it's long now? It was longer then. From an organizational standpoint, it was much better to do it back then when my dad did it, because there were about 30 people in the swim. And they would take the results, they'd finish swimming, and there'd be somebody with a pencil and paper, and what was your name? Okay, you're first place, you're first, and so on. And 30 people later, they were done, and time to move on to their next project. This is an event now that has grown in popularity. I think it grew in popularity primarily because of the 10Ks and the other events that went on that became kind of the in thing to do, and so ocean swimming became more and more popular, and this race grew over the years from 30 people to, you know, all the way up to 100. And so, wow, we've reached our potential. and I think when I took it over about 10, 11 years ago, we were averaging about 500 people in the swim. And Sheila, when she'd do it, she would mail out envelopes, or have people, when they'd sign up, you'd have to have a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you'd have to, once you're registered, you'd send that back in, and it was so involved. There was no way I would ever do what she did. And she spent so much time and so much effort, and so we tried to modernize it with our registration system online. We do it all online now. And since I took over about 10 years ago, it's grown from 500 to, I think we had 1,400 people sign up and about 1,250 swim. The swim is very unique because it's one of the longer swims. There are Catalina races and other things far, far longer than ours. But it's a race that goes some of the most beautiful coastline ever, starting at the Hermosa Pier all the way down to the Manhattan Pier. When they used to they've always had mass starts, so they had anywhere from 30 to 100 people starting, and then it grew and grew, and finally they decided there was too many people for one mass start, and we couldn't do heats because we had to get the lifeguards back to work, and so we finally decided we could handle as many as 3 heats. So now we do 3 different heats. They have the male swimsuit division starts first because it's the largest group, and they start at 9 o'clock, and then at 9:05 we have all the females, both the swimsuit and the wetsuit for all the females go second, 5 minutes behind the first group, and then all the male wetsuits go third, and so we have a 2-hour time limit on the swim.
Okay.
We have a 2-hour time limit on the swim, and that's because we want to make sure we keep people safe with hypothermia. And it used to be a swimsuit only event. We didn't allow any wetsuits. There was there were no heats, you couldn't do it. You couldn't be in the race by doing it. And about 3 years after I took over, we had a particularly cold year and the water dropped down to about 60 degrees. And swimming with no wetsuits for 60 degrees with over 1,000 people, we ended up with about a third of the people in the race that had some degree of hypothermia. And it exceeded our ability to treat them the way we wanted to. And before everybody decided our race wasn't so much fun, we wanted to throw out the wetsuits as an option. But we also didn't want to change it to primarily a wetsuit race. And so we wanted to keep the tradition that we had. And as some of you probably know, swimming in a wetsuit can make you faster if it's the right kind of suit and those kinds of things. So we didn't want the fastest swimmers to be the wetsuit swimmers, which changed the race and it got rid of our history. And so we thought to try to figure out how to best handle it. And we decided that we would keep the fastest swimmers. We include the top 10 female swimmers from the year before in the first heat. And so they all have a 10 minutes head start over the wetsuit group. So the wetsuits, by choice, are not going to be the first ones going across for the Daily Breeze to take their picture and that kind of stuff, because we would prefer it to be a swimsuit race as much as possible. The swim is a labor of love. Every year I think, well, maybe this will be my last year or something, but I'll probably do it a little longer. We get people that do this swim from, I think last year we had them from 22 different states. We have them from, I believe, 6 or 7 different countries last year. And it's all word of mouth. We don't advertise, a little teeny bit of Facebook advertisement, but not even advertisement really, just a few pictures, and this is when the sign-ups are. The race is always the first Sunday in August, which is the last day of the surf festival, and it's something that there's a lot of people out there that plan their whole summer around. And when is it going to be? Because I don't want to be gone and that kind of thing. And so the number of people that have done the swim more than 25 years is staggering. The fact that there's over 1,000 people that could swim 2 miles blows my mind, because when you deal with lifeguards, rescues and things, most of the people can't swim 100 yards, much less 2 miles. And so to have that many people doing that is incredible to me. I mean, I've done it several times after they named it after my dad. I didn't have much choice. and so I'm not sure. It's be easier to swim it than to put it on, but it's still a hell of a challenge. So the race is a labor of love, and we're going to keep doing it. And it's one of the biggest swims in the country, and it's something that I think is important and worth the time to volunteer to put on the event. So when we're done here, we'll happy to answer any questions you may have about it. But my hat's off to the ladies for their contributions, but this is what I've decided to do. So
all right, thank you.